LifePixers. Hope you're having an awesome day. If for some reason it's not going so well, it's going to become awesome now because this is going to be an amazing episode, something so new, so different. And I don't think we're ever going to have a chance to do this again. So you will love this. You probably will want to watch this on YouTube so that way you could see what is happening. So what am I talking about? I took a couple of weeks ago a personality test. Now, not just any personality test. It's called the Logos personality test. And it is something completely different than everything else. It was made by James and Jara, who took a whole bunch of programs together and made their own program. And they are going to share with me the results. I have no idea what they're going to tell me. I did not see the results. We were emailing and setting up a meeting for them to go and share with me everything. And then afterwards, maybe we'll share with you. But I was like, no, let's do this right. Let's do this real. They are going to share the results that I have zero clue what they're talking about, what they're going to say about me, what they're going to say good, what they're going to say bad, what you're going to know. And apparently it goes really, really deep. So let's do this. Thank you so much, James and Jara, for being here. I am so excited. Understatement. You want to start by telling us a little bit about yourself, what you do, how you met, and like how you got involved into making this actual program.
Yeah, so good to be on here with the podcast with you and to have an adventure that's a little different from the typical format. So Jara and I, we met about 3 years ago in Montreal, Canada. Jara had been working as a part of putting on masterminds for entrepreneurs. I had attended one said masterminds. We had just kind of connected. And then over the next year, we saw each other multiple times. I actually reached out to Jara to work with her because she also works with entrepreneurs as a project manager / we call her like a visionary co-pilot. She helps people like take their idea and build it. So I worked with her in that capacity, and we ended up being really fascinated with psychology. So we're obsessed. We've worked in coaching and personal development for many years, and we were like, what would it take to build the most detailed, powerful personality test ever created? And here we are.
Yeah. And then after we had traveled together a bit and worked together, obviously, on one of his other businesses. And so knowing how well we worked together and it was like, okay, well, I could start a business.
You're good partners.
Yes, exactly. Because starting a business is really intense. It's like its own form of a relationship, of a marriage type thing, business marriage. So we thought, okay, this could work. Yeah. Let's try it. So that's how it started.
Jara's my business wife.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just curious, how did you know like what is meant to go in the personality test? Like what type of questions to ask?
Yeah. So we studied everything that has ever been created in this area, from the most esoteric systems of more spiritual psychology to the most practical Big Five related
to the most random pod layer video recording,
weird wild stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we looked at everything. We took our experience of working with people, and doing coaching personal development for 10 years. And we're like, what do we need to know and what is actually valuable? And that's what you are about to experience and what your audience is also about to get a little taste of too.
Okay. So everyone listening, I have no idea what they're going to say about me. So let's do this.
They are going to get to know you very well.
Okay. And I'm
SD, like S&T. I forgot to tell you.
Okay.
But however you say, it's totally fine.
Okay, great. SD, perfect. Okay, so we're gonna just start the journey, and I'll just say for everyone who's listening, the context of how we read this is we use it as a tool to help people achieve their biggest goal, whatever matters to them most. It could be related to a relationship, or it could be related to a professional goal. But that's what we're going to read. And we're going to read this for SD in relation to her goal of helping LifePix University really become associated with effectiveness and productivity and building this brand so that it carries weight in the world over the years to come. Would you say that's the thing to focus on?
That's a thing to focus on, but I would say even bigger than that. Like literally every single person in this world to think that. Just like,
Okay.
and I know it's going to take time, and I know it's going to take a while, but we're going to get to do this in like 10 years time. I'll be like, hey, I remember that. I did that interview a long time ago.
Okay.
Right. So
Beautiful.
LifePix University is the top of mind when it comes to people really creating their goals or reaching that high level of achievement in their life.
Very well said. Yeah.
Awesome. And
Great.
just for everyone listening, prior to this, ST spent she answered a very extensive list of questions.
Oh yeah, it was.
So you know what went into it before. So what she's done is she's gone in, she's answered all the questions, and based off of her answers there, now we're going to pull up the results. So that's where we are now in the journey.
Okay. And can you turn on screen share so I can just give you visual?
Sure.
Great.
Do you have it?
I got it.
Yep.
Okay. And can you see my screen?
I do. So guys, if you're listening to this as a podcast and not on YouTube, you might want to switch onto YouTube so you can see it too.
It's going to be really cool. All right. So before we dive in and like lift up the hood on ST's being, we're going to first just show you guys the model. Okay. And this is what makes this test so detailed, is that we're measuring 42 different traits in 7 areas. So most tests and personality tests, like if you've ever taken an MBTI test before, or if you've ever taken Enneagram, you know, there's maybe 4 traits or 9 traits. We're measuring 42, okay? And these are in 7 areas. That's pragmatic, AKA getting your shit done. That's emotional, AKA how happy you feel in life and how your emotional energy works. There's drive, which is about leadership. There's relational, which is about how you connect with others. There's expression traits, which is about how you express. There's intellect traits, which is about your intelligence and how you process information. And there's transpersonal traits, which is about your expanded sense of self or your spirituality, if you want to call it that.
Okay, I'm loving this already.
Sweet. So inside of each of these 7, there's 6 sub-traits. We won't go into that right now, but each one of these contains 6 like mini traits, if you will. And the final piece before we launch in is the scoring system. So it's out of 30 for each trait. You can't score 30 for every single thing. It's impossible, because the test forces you to make tough decisions and see how you decide when you can't pick both things equally, right? Like you can either choose tonight that you're going to stay in and work on your business, or you can go out and party, but you can't do both with that time. So this is about exploring how people make choices, and that's part of how it gets very honest in the answers.
Yeah, you also don't want to score 30 because so it's 0 to 9 are flags. They're weaker. They might be a little underdeveloped or just really, really low prioritized. And so it's a flag to look at. Do I need to raise my priority in this, learn this, or draw in the right partner, team member, whatever it is? 10 to 17 is a healthy average. 18 to 27 means this is a strength. This is something you're very powerful in. And 28 to 30 is actually another flag on the other side there, where it's so high, it might actually be holding you back because it's so strong. So excellence, for example, becomes perfectionistic, and that can slow down progress, or
responsibility can become anal, and you can't rest without thinking about work, and that's also an impediment.
Exactly.
So
well, healthy best would be like majority of the things to be between 10 and 17, and then to have like a couple in 18 to 27.
I'd say between 10 and like 27 is the sweet spot.
Yeah, anything in between. If they're Yeah.
Okay, so I'm actually going to read some of the text right off of here. What do you think?
Go for it.
Yeah, I think this is. So, all right. So we're going to just give you like a huge overview of ST. Here we go. So we know she's an explorer. We know that in terms of who she is, she loves to explore the unknown. She loves to expand the horizons of herself and the human experience. And maybe that's part of what you guys, if you're listening, love about her, is the way she explores new concepts, new ideas, the way she opens up new horizons for you guys. And
maybe that's why we're doing this like this.
Yeah,
exactly.
like this.
This
in
is
fact,
a perfect example.
This is so cool. Yeah, we don't often have that. So it shows her courage, which she certainly has. We know that she has some amazing leadership qualities and that she's developed her leadership very powerfully. We're going to see her yellow scores are really off the chart. And those are also what leads to productivity and performance. So we're going to see that in just a minute. She's got a good work ethic. She has a warrior inside of her for sure. Interesting. So she's also good at making things big and blowing things up as big as they can be, helping people feel powerful and overcome any victim story they might have. So that's, we'll get into the details of this in a second. I'm just going to keep going down here. Let's look at some of her top, what we call complex traits. This is like where her genius really is. So one thing ST has a knack for is learning and quickly taking action on new insights. So she doesn't sit around. She can get into action quickly and make things happen. She has an intuitive ability to know when something is a little off in a situation. We call that early detection. She has powerful discipline. So she's really mastered what it means to be disciplined. And now that's undoubtedly a big part of what you're sharing with others. And you're not just a badass, you also know how to nurture people.
Okay, now before I tell you that this was like extremely accurate, probably the most accurate thing I've ever seen a personality test, I want to know what the weaknesses are.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into those. Do we actually want to start with those then and then go into the top 7? No.
Let's stay high level for a second and then we'll go there. Okay. So what we're going to see here, this is a visual readout of your scores in these different areas. And what we see right away is that, wow, your drive traits are super, super strong, like some of the highest drive traits that we've seen as a collective. Okay. So this is like your zone of genius. And so it's so perfect that productivity, efficiency, success, like this is totally your wheelhouse. This is totally stuff that you're good at and that you love. So it's like right where that sweet spot is. You are also very high in your pragmatic traits. So that's like doing the work. And you're well developed across both your emotional and relational traits. So you haven't, developed those traits and sacrificed your ability to connect to people or to be happy.
Or to have fun and make it enjoyable along the way. Like you've really learned to balance that discipline and that drive with enjoyment and passion.
Yeah. And then if we look at some of the lower overall scores, it's interesting because your expression is currently, as a whole, your lowest category. And we're going to dig into expression and figure out where are there places where you could share more of your voice, more of your creativity, more of your originality. We're gonna explore that, and we're gonna connect that to how that is going to help you achieve your bigger vision for your business and the brand that you're building. Okay.
And then the other 2 drives, the intellect drive and the transpersonal drives.
Yeah. So what we see is the intellect, and we'll probably see a correlation in the next one down, but the intellect just looks like it's there, it's healthy, it's just less prioritized right now. And then the transpersonal is the same thing. You've put attention to it, but there is just a lesser emphasis on it at this moment.
Just curious before you continue, is it like best, like obviously ideally that like they should all be like equal higher up?
No,
not necessarily.
No, what we wanted to see is that your traits, your top trait categories are matched to what you're doing in your life.
Okay.
And we want to see that if there is really low scores, that it's something that you're aware of, that you either are outsourcing to someone else to support you in, or that you're actively working on developing. So
it's like the alignment, like is where your strengths are in alignment with what you're doing in the world. So that's what we're looking at here. And then if we go down, so these are your values. And interestingly, what we're seeing here is, so the transpersonal isn't that you've lower prioritized it. It's that it looks like it might be a recent higher priority for you, and therefore it's growing and expanding. And that's why that we're seeing that one go up. So again, the drive, top priority, something that you really focus on, that pragmatic, that discipline. And then again, you haven't dropped the heart relational aspect or any of, that passion and that fun. Learning and expression are lower. They're not a priority right now. And then that transpersonal is up there. So it is just in that place of expansion and discovery and growth.
Super cool.
Okay. So we're going to look now really specifically at your zone of genius. Like, what is it exactly that you are, like, quote unquote, the best at? And then we're going to get into the weaknesses and growth edges. Okay. Here we go. So we're looking at your top 7 here across all 42 traits. What are your top 7? So the first thing is that you are a massive action taker. You take initiative, you move things into action, and you help other people to do that as well. Remember that everything that I'm about to say doesn't just apply to you. It's also your gift that you share with the world. So initiative, you've got that dialed. You are highly intuitive. So you really do have a great connection to your intuition. You really do. Yeah. Yeah. And
I live by my intuition.
And that's so amazing, because that's also you can help other people to tap into that. I think for many people, intuition is like some mystical thing, or people don't understand what that even is or what's available to them. And you can certainly help people access more of that.
Yeah, especially because interestingly, when people are really looking to be more productive and whatever, they tend to deprioritize intuition, and that's not always necessarily the case. And so what you can do, and we'll see how all of these play together at the end, but what you can do is really teach how that actually enhances that, because you're so well connected to it, and people will actually be drawn to learn this from you as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're very high in trait systematic, so you can get organized and stay organized and follow a process and show other people how to be organized and follow processes and embrace healthy structure in their lives. Interesting. Okay, so you are high in uniqueness, which is an expression trait. So you embrace your weird, we like to say. You know how to own your weird, which is such a great trait, because it also is going to be very useful for your business, for LifePix to be known as a leader in the productivity and efficiency and success space. We're going to need to figure out how to continually have it stand out, and embracing your weird is such an important part of that you already have dialed in. So that's great. Acquisitive, so you have a great relationship with money, and you help other people to have a good relationship with money and get motivated by all the wonderful things money can do for us. Not to be so important, but something that is a healthy part of our existence.
Yeah, we don't have to undermine what it is.
Exactly. You're high in self-awareness. So you know yourself pretty well. Probably a lot of this is not a huge surprise, but
what's super cool, the huge surprise is how you're able to get from those questions to this, because so far this is, like you said, self-aware. I think none of it was a surprise. It's just true.
That was our goal.
Yeah.
So you know yourself really well, and you also can help other people develop self-awareness. Like if someone doesn't really know themselves, or there's something that's in their shadow or their unconscious, you can help make them aware of that pattern or that thing. And here we have compassion. So you have empathy for other people. You can look at people with compassion, which is a unique thing. Oftentimes we see people, if they're high in red and yellow, and they're kind of the success, productivity, if they have that piece, a lot of times, what's the metaphor? People are like the successful asshole energy, right? And you've got a big heart. So that's like a rare pairing of traits that we're seeing here.
Just like thinking how cool it is for you guys to read these all day and like learn about people.
Yeah. We get to
the reward for all your hard work.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
So it's interesting because if we look at because the top 7, the reason we pick 7 is the way these play together are really, like we said, your unique zone of genius, because there's no one out here that has this exact same combination. So when we look at how they all play together with that quick start and that systematic and the self-awareness and uniqueness and money, like all of these 7 really bring, and it's actually quite beautiful with the LifePix University, right? It's like, how do people go from having that idea, or maybe it's even that intuitive hit, and how do they take action on that with the right, with the right processes to make the growth as smooth as possible, also with their own internal awareness. And because of that compassion, you can really speak to them and teach them this in a way that feels maybe softer than most other people teach it. And so you help them really blossom into this most impactful version of themselves through that drive, through the creation of their own being, their own unique process.
Yeah. And I just add, like, I think it's like you're this, like, you can lovingly kick someone's butt into trusting the thing that's coming through for them and taking action on it and build a system around it so they can actually go do it.
Yeah, that.
Hope.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So now what we're going to do is we are going to look at what we call growth edges and
weaknesses.
Yes.
Yeah. So
but they may be, or they may be an area that's not important right now. So we're going to go through in getting clear on that.
Yeah. So what, and thank you for the introduction, because what we want to point out before we walk through these is each one is just, the prompt is this something I personally really need to work on? Or is it just something I need to call someone else in, because putting my time and attention to this would actually take away from where it should otherwise be? So sometimes, we do have areas that we're not strong in. Mine, for example, is my mathematical score, not so great. But for me to take that amount of time to really dig into that would be a waste of my time and taking me out of my zone of genius. So I hire people to do that for me. And so for you, that's the same invitation, is to really think of, okay, is this something that we should help you focus on in order to really expand? Or are we just calling in the right team for you in that way?
Okay, let's see.
All right, here we go. So each one of these is a little dialogue. So we're going to start with your first one, which is so interesting because your expressive score is low. And what that suggests is that there can be a little filter on things that you share with others or with the world. So I'm curious, is there, like, do you find yourself like either filtering something that you want to share sometimes, or do you find yourself wishing you were more expressed in a particular area?
I think that it's more of a conscious choice not to do it. Does that make sense? Or maybe, like, I don't know, I'm learning something new, maybe something else.
What area? So when you say it's a conscious choice not to do it, can you give an example?
This is key. It could be taken in a lot of different ways, but this is like one specific way that, like, I hate this small talk, like, in people. I like always going deeper, like learning more about them. Or so sometimes it means like putting the conversation on them to learn more about them. But sometimes, or it's just like to speak about an idea, and I don't want to share about, like, let's say what happened my day or what's going on, things like that. Cause I'm like, okay, that's boring. Let's like get to what we really want to talk about.
Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's not wanting to talk just for talking's sake.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, got it. So here the question would be like, and I think if we go down here too, there's I think the question is like, when it comes to sharing, because we're reading this in light of your business, is there an area where like you want to be more expressed, let's say online, or you want to be even more out there? Because like this podcast is awesome and it's obviously a great tool for that. But is there anything else where you've been thinking, you know, I really should be more, I should be sharing more in a particular area that you haven't been?
Okay, now, like when you put the question like that, then it makes me think like, is everything that I thought until now, was it just as like so-called coping mechanism, or was it really, because that what I believe, like, let's say take for an example, social media. Yeah. Going back to the thing, like, I don't need to see pictures of people, what they ate for dinner that night. Right. And things like that, or whatever. Right. So when most of what I post is much more like really, really business oriented. And then like when people want to know more, it's like, oh, like, what's the point of it? And I'm like, oh, yeah, what's the point? like, why should I go and do that? Like, who cares? Right. I'd rather give you like real advice or something that's really going to be helpful than just like you getting to know that. But if you want to know, I'll tell you, you know what I'm saying? So maybe that is something like I still haven't like all these years haven't budged from that. So maybe that's something, it's a sign for something.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting because what would it look like? Because your unique score is so high, like, you know, yeah, you own your uniqueness and who you really are and how you're different from, you know, everyone else in the world. So what would it look like to share more of that so that your people can really relate to you? Because your energy and your gifts are so unique that is part of what will draw people in and creates that trust and that bond with who you're speaking to and your audience and your students and all of those things. And so what would it look like to remove a little bit of that filter and start to express a little more of that?
Interesting. Interesting. When you phrase it like that, it gives it a whole new perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So this can be an invitation that may say, okay, is there another way to get even more visible in your social media? Is there a way to, like, you know, I also often think of like social media as like a party, and it's like there's like a time to share kind of value, like, and like clearly you've got that piece down, right? Like sharing really valuable content that's like for people. But are there fun sides? Are there other pieces that you could share that would make you even more visible to people?
Yeah, or a party, or I usually think of it as like a networking event.
Yeah, like Russell Brunson says.
Yeah. And so I've actually met so many people because, you know, I follow them online, I've watched their stories, and I'm like, oh, they're funny, or they're interesting, or they're hilarious. And I'll reach out. And then if I'm in the same city as them, I'll be like, hey, want to grab a coffee? And then, you know, an actual relationship grows from that. And it is because, you know, they're not only posting the lessons, but I'm getting a glimpse into who they are, and that intrigues me. And then I want to get to know them.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
So guys, if you start seeing different types of stuff on social media, you'll know why.
Hey. Okay. And okay, so then you scored low in trait articulate. So it may be like do you prefer like writing or video, or how do you tend to share online with your stuff?
Yeah, no, not writing, but even it's in all areas. Articulation, I know, is a weak thing. You'll see, like, as I ask my questions on the podcast, they sometimes get repeated for those type of things. I don't know if you noticed that, or if you read it before, so you noticed it. But writing all of those things, yeah.
Okay, cool. So one idea might be, because the thing is, like, and for those of you guys listening, like, we can't be good at everything, right? We can be decent at everything, but we can't be like really good at everything. It's impossible. And so I think, you know, that's where we just have to get team and get support for those other things. So, you know, we can think about like, would it be helpful, or would it be impactful to, let's say, have a copywriter, you know, for an hour or two a week to just kind of work with you on some stuff and get like content out. Because if writing isn't your favorite mode of expression, like, pick somebody who it is and who is amazing at it, and then have them, you know, it doesn't take long, a couple hours, and then they can crank out some amazing stuff for emails and everything else, you know. So that might be one idea.
Yep. Totally on that one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. And the same thing goes for this next one. So polish is about like the concern and care for making things look really good. It's also a hindrance for most people because if things look really good, they oftentimes like don't post or don't share or don't put themselves out there until they think it's perfect. So that's good in a way that you don't have this as a super high trait. But again, the question is, having someone help you with maybe graphics or having someone who's like can be your polish expert to put that final little sheen on everything, right?
I think this comes from a rebellion thing. I don't know if this is like just a personality or like could it be also growing up? Like my mom was like everything, not just like perfect, not just like the tops, like over and everything. So now it's like, okay, whatever, if it's good enough, like just let it go. So could be it's a personality thing, like the thing, or is it more like from nurture type of thing?
Well, and that's interesting because how does your personality develop is in part nature and in part nurture. And so this is an area where you, through your rebellion, you've purposely decided not to nurture this own aspect of your personality. You're just like, you want to know what? This isn't important to me, or I don't like it because it's been so pushed on me that I'm going to now push away and just leave it be.
Yeah. And so now the question is like, yeah, what would it look like to have either support in that area where you have someone who just like loves like polishing it to the final, like perfected little image. So it's like, all the things look great, or like continuing to own like a raw style as being your brand identity and standing out that way. Because that's also cool. And I know really successful businesses that have made that conscious decision.
Yeah.
I'll take it. I'm working on the polished, getting someone to do it myself, or both of them.
Yeah.
Or both. Yeah. Or both. It's great too. Yeah, totally.
Okay. This one is really interesting. This next one.
Mm-hmm. So what this means when you have mathematical low, it doesn't mean that you can't do math. Like you might be able to do it. It just means it's not your favorite.
Okay. Because you want to hear something strange?
Yes.
I hated school and I hated every single subject in school. And I can't say I liked math, but I enjoyed it the most from every single subject.
Huh.
That is interesting.
Interesting.
So in your current...
Now it's like a calculator, everything. I can't do any math. So it could be like it for sure. Yeah. Like I feel it in myself that my math like went down.
Yeah.
Well,
that's so for sure.
Not only just your math skills. Again, it's not necessarily that you can't do math. It's when you're making a decision, how often do you draw upon numbers to help make that decision? Like how often is like, oh, I feel like I should do this, but maybe I should look at my balance sheet before I actually make that decision.
No, I think sorry, but I think it's quite like I do. It is quiet use.
So some of these, like to get these answers right, you have to answer the questions in particular ways. So in it, you probably, when you are choosing between doing like math related things versus doing non-math related things, you always were picking the non-math related things in the test. And that's
okay. So that's why.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Fine. Well, if that's the first thing that's off, this is awesome.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'm just checking ahead here and I'm just looking. Yeah. And your mindful isn't even low. That's not even a low score. So that's not really.
It is. You had on there low.
It is, but it's not. You got a 12.
I would say, yeah, I think that was right. That mindful was low.
Okay, cool. Because you got a 12, which is not a really low score. So I didn't want to like say like you don't have mindfulness or anything like that.
It just means that is the next lowest score. So that anything after that's actually a healthy number.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just curious. Do you know what the other numbers are like for mathematical and the other low ones?
Yep.
We're going to go through them in a second. That's actually next.
Yep. So we're going to take a peek. Before we do this, we're going to glance at your archetypes for just a second. And in addition to Explorer, we're going to see, okay, so you have Explorer. You also have the Hero, which is about doing something significant. So you're on a mission, like, let's go.
Yeah. And then the Caregiver matches that nurturing, that like, not only are you on a mission, but you are on a mission also to support and help others.
Yeah. Your mission is to discover to do things that have impact and meaning in the world, and like living a normal life is like, no, thank you. And supporting other people is deeply fulfilling for you. And when we think about archetypes is like, what are the things that if you do will fulfill you? And so like, for example, for like people listening, you know, if you want to unlock performance in anything you're doing, part of the keys or part of the deeper keys of that, like, has to do with, are you aligned? Like, is this really the thing that brings you fulfillment and joy or not? Because if it isn't, it's like, you know, it's always going to feel kind of hard. Whereas if you align with those archetypes of yours that feel like, that link to your deepest fulfillment, things feel a lot easier. And then we have greater enjoyment.
Yeah. Because if you look at these are really the core values. And so when you're living in alignment with that, it does feel, even though it may be work, times doesn't necessarily feel like work. It's exciting. It feeds you. And if your values, if you're not doing something and it kind of bores you, or they're not actually like lighting up those values, you might become a little lethargic and like unmotivated. And if they're too much on the other side of they're like stronger values, and you have to really force yourself to do it, you might get burnt out. But when you're on that sweet spot of alignment, that's when that drive can really flourish.
Okay, yeah. Explains why I love to travel so much.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so if we were to name those values, like we're saying here, it's explorer, hero, caregiver, but really it's discovery, mastery, and love. Like that's really
where do you get, like, those are your own names or like?
Yeah, those are just like what the actual
underlying values of each of these kinds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into the nuance of each of those buckets, and we're going to see how all of these play together. And with the growth of LifePix University, which ones you can lean on, and where, what we're really looking at here, the ingredients that are necessary to expand that to become the known place.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first thing I'm going to see, we're going to start from your pragmatic traits, is like your initiative is a freaking 30. So like, you're moving on stuff, like you're going, you do not sit still.
There's no time between idea and starting the idea.
Oh God, it's true.
And so like what to do, here's how you use it as a positive in your business is like, when you invite people, maybe to when they first find out about you, like whatever the first thing is that they come to do, like it's like quick start action, like getting them into momentum, like all of that is like literally, like if I could describe you in a word, it's like your red and yellow traits, it's like freaking momentum. You know? So
okay, so just explain to me what we're all looking at right here in front of us.
Yeah,
because it's
okay.
It's
not no time action. I need to see.
Yeah. So we're looking at a spider graph of your trait development in your pragmatic area. And you can see that like the numbers here, if they're this high as a 30, this is like a superpower.
It's
actually even so far that it might even be like, okay, well, it's like pump the brakes every once in a while. You know what I mean? It's like such a powerful thing.
Yeah. What I would love to, because what we're seeing here is a very like your base from which you build everything is strong. Like you're highly responsible, your vitality, your health is important. You know that that's going to play into everything you're building. You're assertive, you know your boundaries, you can play with them and like, you know, create what you want. You're very grounded, you can be in the present moment. Your follow through is strong enough that yes, you're all about the quick start and you can get it far enough to either hand it off to someone else and be like, okay, finish this now. Or if you have to, you can do it.
It's 12. Is that not like on the lower end?
It is on the lower end, but as we see this often with entrepreneurs, especially quick start entrepreneurs, because it's not even that it's on the lower end is not a problem. This is why you collect team, right? Because it is your gift to help people be like, okay, let's get started. How can you get started now? It's not necessarily your gift to teach it's like getting them into action, you know, that productivity, that like, okay, how can we get going? is your area of genius. And then, once it gets going and it's rolling it, you've gotten it to a place where you're generating enough that you can now call in the team to really take it over and nurture it, bring it to completion, help it grow. And then you can then go off and start the next thing and be like, okay, I also have this other idea that's coming through and I need to start that as well. And that's where your genius is, right? If you can start the idea, get it going, hand it off to the right team members, and then start the next one, that will keep you so inspired.
So I'm just curious, if the 30 is like things, is that by the intuitiveness, is that like already a negative, like something?
Well, so that's something that I wanted to address next is, as a 30, it is indeed a flag. And so the thing for you to pay attention to, because your novelty seeking is also quite high, which we'll see in the next one, is a 20. So you might have something we call shiny object syndrome. So it's like you get an idea or a new thing and you're like, oh, that would be great. And you like jump on it and you go, because there's such a quick connection between having the idea and starting it. And you love the new and the exciting. And that's part of the explorer, right? And so checking and being like, wait, is it wise for me to start this now? Or should I put this in my idea bucket, book, wherever you keep your ideas? And then and just doing that check will already help with this, because it can, and most visionaries have this, or having a team member. I've had to do it for this one over here and be like, no, that is a great idea. Yes. And first we need to sit over here a little bit longer and then you can go do that one. And so doing that check for yourself, or having someone check that with you when you have a new idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if we look over here in your emotional traits, again, like overall really healthy, great. Your EQ is pretty high. So that's a strength. You can really navigate your own emotions and the emotions of others. Just looking here for like highlights. You know what you want. Your passion is high. So you also help people kind of figure out what the hell they actually want. Like, I feel like a lot of people don't really know that.
Always did and always will.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's great.
And that's such a strength, especially with the gifts that you have and what you do with others, right? Is you're not only helping them get started quick, you're making sure that alignment we were talking about is there. Like, what do you really want? Because that's when you'll really blossom, right? So that's great.
Mm-hmm. So if we look at drive, this is like your superpower area. All quite strong, all quite healthy. Like,
yeah, this is spectacular. This is like one of the most beautiful drive spider graphs we've ever seen.
Yep. And if we look at here at your relational traits, really, really solid, good trust score. You see the best in people.
That what you were saying
earlier. 10 makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. So you probably are a little more introverted sometimes. And that's okay. Like, it's, again, like figuring out where your sweet spot is and how you connect with people, how people find you. The important thing is that when it comes to building your business and your brand online, like, how are people finding you? How are they connecting in with you? Really making sure that you have the support on the marketing side, so that if someone, let's say, is a lot higher in trait sociable, they might figure out like, oh, like there's a DM strategy that's like really effective, or there's
this event would be really great for someone from the team to go to, or and this is where team is vitally important, because like James said earlier, we can't be great at everything. So making sure that, if it's a 10, it's not unhealthy. But if it's not your excitement, whose is it? And how can they really flourish in that way as a team together? That's why we have tribe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's so interesting, right? Because
2, 4, 6, 8. Whoa.
Who do you appreciate? So the other thing we're seeing here is that
this is interesting. It's really interesting.
Super interesting. Yeah. So like when it comes to this is like, especially with marketing, because persuasion is such a big piece of it. Selling, because persuasion is such a big piece of it. Again, like there might be like, I think the perfect tag team partner to find is like the marketer, like the great
social,
the social
persuasive,
marketer.
expressive, polished.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that they express, because what we're seeing here is that there's so many, you're so about, that drive, that it's just a devaluation of, oh, like, why would I take the time to, whether it's a creative expression or a written expression? It's like, no, I don't want to waste that time. It's just not your excitement, right? So finding someone that loves that and is like, oh, but what you do, we can explain it this way and we can talk about it that way. And we can post this picture or that, like that is their excitement. And so getting them on will create that well-rounded and really expand the public version of LifePix and get that message out there for the world to know, like, oh, that's where I need to go.
Now, what do you say, just out of curiosity, if that like uniqueness is so high and then like almost everything else on here is really low? Like, does that mean anything or not? Especially?
Well, the uniqueness, it is a form of expression, right? You're expressing your own unique being. And so that's why it's in this thing. And like we said earlier, you really know who you are and you own it. And so it's a great thing. Because you can even bring that in when you find that marketer. You can be very like, look, this is how me and LifePix is different from everything else. And you're very clear on that. And being clear on that is such a strength, because it's like your USP, right? And so what draws people to you versus anywhere else? Like you just know that. And that's so clear.
If we just look quickly, intellect, again, everything's pretty solid here. You love to learn. Yeah. So another great thing is to be just constantly sharing whatever you're learning. So you don't have to always feel like you're coming up with all this stuff. It's just like, here's what I'm learning this week. Here's what I learned this week. Here's what I learned this week, right?
Yeah,
here's what I learned this hour.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. And then another beautiful thing that we're seeing here is because your intuition is really high, but your discernment is also strong. And so you've learned how to, play with both.
Yeah. When we look at intuitive score here in transpersonal and we compare that to your discernment score and intellect, we're seeing that like this is the logic side and this is the intuitive side. A lot of people are more one way or another. They're like very intuitive and like always how I feel, or they're like very logical, like this is how it's going to be. And I think with you have a good balance of both.
Yeah, well, I am quite, I identify with both. So yeah, but I'm seeing this patient's here at 6 and I'm like, it belongs at a 0.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Also,
no, it's good. No, 6. However, I pretend to try. Yeah.
So that's like kind of a overview. Like there's certain things, you could go deeper on, but that's giving you the 30,000 foot quick, like blast through everything, show you how it goes.
Well, this is super, super cool. Like understatement. How I need to hear more of your process of how you were able to get to this to make it so accurate.
The whole thing in general?
Whole thing in general.
Okay.
The tech part, the psychological part, the testing part, everything.
Yeah. Well, it started by, we had the first group of people, we had a large beta group, I guess you would say, and we had, God bless every one of their souls, we had them take multiple tests. So we had them take Enneagram, MBTI, Big 5, something called the colors test. I know I'm missing Strengths Finder, these different tests. And then once we had a data analyst that we were working with. And once we got to a significant number, he was like, okay, now we can analyze and correlate the data. And so bringing them all together and how do all of these different things play together and what can we learn from these playing together? And I want to say, was it half of all of those people? We got on a call with them as well. So they would take all the different tests and kind of do what we're doing now with you, but we would have to go into all of their different test results and be like, okay, this is, what's it look like for you and how is this playing? So we'd speak to them as well and get their feedback and really understand them. And so that was the first phase of,
yeah, it was building and rebuilding it, like running test after test, like, no, we don't like this, change that, like, and we're still improving it, like it's always going to be evolving based on what we're learning, what we're seeing. And all the applications of it.
Yeah. The test is ever
a lot of love, a lot of like just time.
Yeah. A lot of time, a lot of conversations, a lot of people, and interaction and study.
Super cool. Oh my God, I love this. Okay, so tell me, what do you see like from like other people that are taking this test and what results are they seeing either in their careers or in their marriage? Like how's it helping them, the fact that they know these strengths? And
yeah, so there's a couple things that are happening. So the first thing we see happening is like people are finally getting the support that they actually need. People are realizing this is the team members I need to have, not these other people. Sometimes they realize like, I don't even have the right team. And they're actually getting that support in their lives. So that's huge. And then that's causing them to actually focus on what they're great at and just double down and have less stress and more success because they're just like focused on the right things.
Yeah. And then as far as, because you asked about marriage specifically just now, we do actually do couples. And what happens is they each go through the test and we take their scores and we put them in a graph side by side. And so it's like, okay, where are you placing really high value and you maybe aren't? And how is that causing friction? Or what is something that you're super skilled at that maybe this person has never seen or recognized or understood? Like, why do you always do that? And it's just like, oh, I get it. And so it really helps that deeper understanding and it creates kind of intimacy, but it brings up the conversations where you might be consistently getting stuck and you've started to avoid the conversation because you just always get in a fight about it or some sort of conflict. But because there's no emotion there, because it's all the data, we actually have a lot of laughs with these couple and so it's like a fun way to have,
like all the understanding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like a fun way to have that conversation. And now because there's that deeper understanding, it's a lot lighter and there's more of this is how now we can work with it together. Or I should actually be leaning on you for that instead of getting annoyed with you for it because I need help in that area. So that's been really unique and quite fun actually.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been great. And I think the last thing I'll say just about it is like, people are getting a sense of like, the thing that they didn't think was that special about them. Because we're always like, we're so in our own reality, right? That we don't always like realize the things that we're actually that amazing at. And people don't often see it accurately or like reflect it to us because we're also busy.
We're so good at it. It's normal.
Yeah. We're so good at it. It's normal. So people stop taking those things for granted and are actually like, oh my God, like I'm actually really good at this specific trait or this specific thing.
Yeah. Oftentimes when we go through those top 7 and we help people or we go through like this is how they play together and what you're great at. We have people like, wait, I need to write this down because I need to put it on my website or whatever. Like I've never been able to explain what I do or why I do. And then we give them like the words for it and they get all excited. And yeah.
It's great.
That is really
so cool. And then like you get to see also like the combination, like which combinations happen often and which ones work well and which ones.
Yeah.
We're having a good time over here.
I could tell.
Yeah.
But we both love psychology. So yeah.
That's so interesting, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if people want to take this test, which I think every single person should, oh God, I'm going to like push for this so much because I think this is so good. Where should they go? How can they start this process?
So you can go to welcometologos.com, welcome to logos, logos.com, and you'll see different applications. So if you want to do it for yourself, you can do it for yourself. If you want to do it with a couple for your relationship, you can do it there. If you want to do it for your business partner, I mean, you can do a bunch of different ways.
Yeah. If you want to do it for a team, because we've done team things like where is the team a whole or gaps, then you can fill in the request there and we'll reach out. But yeah, all the different ones are there also with more information on it, how it works, all the information, all the details.
All the things.
All the
Super cool. Okay. So final question, one that I ask everyone is how would you describe an extraordinary relationship without using love, intimacy, or connection?
A deep understanding and care for combined with communication, discipline, and joy.
That says a lot about you.
One where you get to grow through multiple phases of who you are, and one in which you find some energy exchange where you don't get tired of each other. And because you're always allowed to keep growing and you support each other in that process.
That is said really well. Wow. Well, this was so cool and so awesome, guys. You're like going right now to Welcome to Logos. What is it? The link's going to be in the show notes. You could just click on it and go straight there and take it because you are going to want to do this. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
ST.
you. Yeah, this was fun.
So fun.
Thanks for being brave enough to do it live. You're the first one that was, yes, that was awesome.
That's all for this episode of the LifePix University podcast, but I have a huge favor to ask of you that will not only support the show, but will also help the people you love most. We are striving for 1 million downloads by the end of 2025, and we can't do this without your help. If you love this episode, please share it with 2 of your family and friends so they too can rewire their brains to have an extraordinary marriage. It was awesome spending time with you, and I'll see you on the next episode.